My name is Nuha Al-Faham, and I will be chairing the session this afternoon. I hope you had good lunch break and that you enjoyed it. I have a few housekeeping announcements before we proceed with the presentations. I'm pretty sure you may have heard it already a few times today. Please turn off your cell phones and pagers during the session out of respect for the speakers and the attendees. At the end of the presentation, there will be a question and comment period. Please postpone asking questions until the end of the session, just to stay on schedule. Also, please remember that product names may not be used by the speaker nor by attendees' questions. For credit purposes, and if you are a professional, please print your name and email address on the attendance form if you wish to have an AIA or GBCI credit. And note that not all sessions qualify for credit. However, attendance forms or certificates will be emailed to you within 30 days of the conference date for sessions qualifying for the credit. If you are a student, please print your name and your professor's name on the sign-in sheet if your professor is requiring or offering extra credit for attendance. And I'm going to pass around those for the attendance credit. Also, there will be evaluation forms. If you haven't already gotten them, please help distribute those evaluation forms. 2 evaluation forms for each attendee. So we ask you to kindly complete the speaker and session evaluation form and turn it into the monitor on your way out at the end of the session. And again, use 1 form for each speaker. We have 2 presentations, 2 interesting presentations here for this session, and I'm going to start with the first presenter. It is my pleasure to introduce Mark Levy. Mark's session will be about Michigan solar initiatives, and a little background about Mark. He is the manager for renewable energy programs with the MEDC Michigan Energy Office. Mark has over 35 years of professional experience in renewable energy and energy efficiency. He was the project manager on the first utility interconnected solar PV system in the state and was a formal intervener on behalf of PV in the original PURPA hearings. He is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force and holds an MPA. Please help me welcome Mark Levy.
Okay, great. So actually we're going to have one interesting presentation. It's going to be the person who follows me. So I'm just going to be setting up the session here. I work with the Michigan Energy Office. Those of you who know John Sarver, I replaced him when he joined the dark side and became a consultant and a lobbyist. We're launching, or we launched, in the process of launching, a Solar Ready Communities initiative in the state. Let's see. This is how it works. U.S. Department of Energy provides Michigan with a grant to operate a state energy office, and they provide all states with a to do this. Different states operate them in different ways. In Michigan, the office is operated per an executive order from Governor Snyder, transferred to the Michigan Strategic Fund and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and renamed the Michigan Energy Office. Our job, when we did that, was to change slightly in that we needed to begin to justify energy efficiency and renewable energy in economic development terms. So previously, if we were housed in the environmental quality, we would be talking about energy efficiency and renewables and its environmental attributes. But in the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, we have to, and I think it's a good thing, talk about this in terms of its economic development impact. So that's what we do. And the solar initiative then is to work with communities to help them do 2 things. One is to help local communities capitalize on their solar assets, as a way to stimulate community and economic reinvention. So we look at solar energy and solar-related community vitality, business investment, etc. So looking at how solar energy can actually be applied in a community to improve its community and economic standing, development standing. And the other one is to lower the installed cost per watt for solar Michigan in comparison to other alternatives. Those would be renewable energy alternatives and fossil fuel alternatives. So how can we make it more competitive? What can we do to make solar more competitive and to get more of it used as an economic development tool? So this is the way we kind of look at it. We found that a lot of the barriers, a lot of things that drive the cost of solar up have nothing whatsoever to do with technology. They're things that have a lot to do with how solar is regulated. And in Michigan, we have a thing called home rule, which means that the regulation for buildings where solar energy gets put on, that regulation is driven by building codes, building permitting, electrical permits, etc. So it's managed at the local government level. So if Michigan wanted to have one rule that talked about how close a solar system can be to a rain gutter, and we wanted contractors to all have the same idea so that when they went from one community to another, they'd know what their cost would be. If we wanted to do that, we'd have to go to thousands of communities in the state and get them all to adopt the same principle, which is exactly what we're doing. So we're working with, through the Solar Initiative, to do that, to remove these barriers. Dave is going to talk a bit about this, but the research we have found is that the cost for installing an identical solar system in Michigan on a per watt generated basis, so installed cost per watt, can range from as low as $2.80 per installed watt as high as $8.50 a watt for the same system installed by the same contractor to generate the same amount of energy, and everything is identical except the humans that have come together and agreed upon a set of rules. And that's all it is. And these are rules that can be changed with the stroke of a pen and a vote. And so this is what we're doing, working with communities to adopt to reform costly solar-related regulatory barriers, reduce the burden of government, unnecessary and in many cases redundant zoning ordinances, offer solar-related incentives and technical assistance. So if you were going to be any kind of a community and you wanted to get yourself ready for some kind of development, including bringing lots of high technology computer companies into your place, or putting in a new football stadium, or whatever you wanted to do, you would become development ready by aligning your incentives and regulatory environment to make it favorable to that kind of development. And that's what we're doing here, making it favorable, aligning incentives and offering technical assistance, and then encourage innovations and projects. Let's get smart about how we do this. For example, you heard at lunch the grant that we provided to the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. How innovative it is. Why don't we get all the churches together and have them all buy a solar system, and that way we get it in bulk, and we can get tremendous savings. And because we can get savings and get the price points down, then we can do financing. So the model we're looking at there is, let's use a lease model. Put solar systems on churches, no upfront cost, 10-year lease, the system operates for 25 years. After 10 years, it's now a revenue stream. Do that 6,000 times in Michigan on 6,000 congregations. We have made a huge difference. We don't need to change the Constitution, we just need to cooperate. So that's in a model and innovation that we've done. And I'm going to talk to you in a moment about another innovation, and then David's going to wax and wane on it in deep. So here's the things that we're trying to do under this Solar Ready Community Initiative. One is we spent the last 2 years working up at the Great Lakes Bay region up in Saginaw Bay City and Midland to test out this model of working with communities. And we have 5 communities up there now who are on this path of becoming solar ready, streamlining their systems and putting in place incentives and programs. We funded a project with the Clean Energy Coalition here in Ann Arbor to develop a model guidelines, and we're calling it a Solar Ready guidebook, and it provides guidances for local communities on how to put solar language in the master plan, into the building ordinances and permitting process to make it very simple to do that. That was tested out as well. It rolls out this month. And our partners in that are the Michigan Township Association, Michigan Municipal League, Michigan Association of Counties, and a number of others. Any community in Michigan that would like to get this free plug-and-play guidebook only has to ask. And if you'd like assistance in doing this, there are people who can come to help you do that. There are grants available to help communities do this. We're in discussion now with 6 different communities to do a full-blown solar program. This is the, I'm sorry? You know, we're in discussion with those, and I can't say it, but they are spread across the state, and some of them are municipal utilities, some of them aren't. So I will say that it's easier if you're a municipal utility to get this done than if you are your city is a customer of the major investor-owned utilities. But that's still not a barrier, so it just takes a different way of thinking about it. So this is what the guidebook looks like, and as I say, this is available, including all of the permitting, everything that you need in a community to do this, except the votes, of course. The other piece we did is a grant with Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, which you'll hear more about in just a moment from David. We looked at this idea of how do we leverage these assets and how can we get communities engaged in doing solar. And typically communities are defined as a geographic area, like Traverse City Light and Power who launched a solar program. And in essence, I'll let David go into the details on it, but basically it's pretty simple. A municipal utility says to their ratepayers, the people like yourselves, let's say you're all metered in my city, and I turn to you and I say, we'd like to put up a large solar array, and I'm going to let every one of you buy a panel or several panels in the array. And then what we're going to do every month is calculate how much energy was produced by the array, and we're going to credit your utility bill for the next 25 years. And so your investment will be paid off at some point in the future, and from then on you will be getting money back. So in communities, depending how you define the community and what community you work with and other things, the numbers change. In some places it's very attractive, other places it's less, but it's possible to do. So Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association has put together a community solar guidebook, which really looks at if you wanted to do community solar, or wanted to take this model of individual investor-owned utility, i.e. solar array, how could you do that? You could do it as a municipal, you could do it as a church, group of churches, you could do it as a large store, you could do it as many other options that David will talk to you about. So this was the other project that we did in our community Solar Ready initiative this year. And that's the book there, and David, who you're about to hear from, actually was the key writer on this book. We also funded a project that you heard a little bit about today at lunch with Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, which is to test this idea of can we take pre-aggregated groups. And pre-aggregated group is literally, if I worked in the Small Business Association of Michigan, and every day we get somebody calling up saying, boy, you got 10,000 members, why don't you make it possible for us to sell our product to your 10,000 members? It'll be just such a great deal. Well, that's because it was a pre-aggregated group and they didn't need to go make those sales and marketing. Those customers were in one place. We looked at the same thing with MIPO. And MIPO was set up as an aggregation model for energy efficiency for its previous 10 years. And now we're looking, can we take that same kind of thing and apply solar to it? What if we found 7 to 10 congregations and they all put up basically the same system from the same contractor in the same time frame? You know, how would the numbers work? And then we did a back of the envelope calculation and said, well, geez, in Michigan, 20% of residential structures in the state are candidates for solar. 80% aren't because they face the wrong way or they rent them or whatever. So if we take a typical congregation, average number of congregants in any congregation in the state is about 500. So if we say of those 500, 300 are residences, and of those, 20% of them could put solar on their house. The other 80% could invest in a community solar program. And that community solar program could be on the congregation. It could be any other place as well. So it opens up tremendous leverage if we can get things moving in the right direction. We also do a series of workshops, seminars, and grants. We've helped fund this conference here today. We underwrite and help fund the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association's annual conferences and others. We do that. And then we house a series of, we call subject matter experts. These are people who have been working in this field for a long time. Myself, I built my first solar collector in 1975. So I have engineers on my staff and we have others. And we are paid for with your tax dollars and all of your competitors' tax dollars. And we're brains here, and we can be deployed in communities to help figure this thing out and get this done. So we have, one of the things we have done this year also, the last project we did, is we've gone together and we pulled together a group of Michigan's organizations and individuals and experts who have interest in solar energy related community economic development. And that's not everybody. I mean, some businesses are only interested in selling their product. They don't really care about getting involved in the communities. And there's lots of people that just don't have the time and energy to invest years in a project to do what we're doing. Now I've got a solar energy community guidebook. Now we got to go to thousands of communities across the state and talk to them about this. I'm paid to do this. So we have this stuff, and we have now formed a group of individuals, Sierra Club, MIPL, Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and about 20 other organizations who have said we want to collaborate on getting this job done and how can we work together to do that. So that stable of people is together, and we're working on that group is to pull them together even more and find ways we can leverage our capabilities. One of the most exciting projects we have kind of got under this so far is Michigan has one of the largest Sierra Clubs in the nation. Sierra Club launched a national solar program about 10 years ago. 5 states launched additional programs where they wanted to, had a program, but they only wanted to use in-state, made in their state solar equipment. Michigan's doing the same thing. And under the current law in Michigan, made in Michigan products, solar products, get some incentives under the current renewable energy program. So Sierra Club is working closely with us and looking at several contractors to launch a program to allow discounted solar materials available to any solar Sierra Club member, as well as allow Sierra Club members to invest in community solar programs. And so we're trying to get a competition here. A real competition. So if we say we take 4,000 environmental members who are members like Sierra Club, 4,000 people in the state who can afford to spend $400 on a solar panel. And then we turn to communities from one end of the state to the other and say, whichever one of you communities offers the best deal will come in and finance your array. We'll finance the whole program just by bringing in the environmental. And within 5 years, or 5 to 7 years, those same people will be able to reinvest again because that thing will have been paid off. So we can get this done. You add churches, you add congregation members, you add environmental members. We don't need to change the Constitution. We just need to get smart about how we're doing this. The community solar program you're about to hear about is a way that this can get done. Organizing individuals and groups like the Sierra Club, Michigan Environmental Council, MIPL, and others is the way we begin to move the customer base to get this done as well. So with that, I think, why don't we push questions to the end?
Yeah, we're going to leave the questions to the end for both presentations. Thank you very much, Mark.
Excellent.
And we're going to move now with the next presentation. Our next presenter will be David Conkle. He was the energy coordinator for Ann Arbor for 20 years. Where he led the city's effort to increase energy efficiency and utilize renewable energy. He is now the Energy Programs Director for the Ann Arbor DDA and serves on the Board of Directors of the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association. He is currently the director of a grant-funded project to educate about the potential of community solar in Michigan. Please help me in welcoming David Kunkel.
Thanks to Mark's office and thanks to the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association board, we decided to look into a concept called community solar for Michigan. We received a grant from the State Energy Office to pursue this feasibility study for Michigan. That is close to publication. I'm guessing a couple weeks away. Will it be available in print or an electronic version for those who are interested in learning a lot more than I'm going to tell you today about it. I'm limited in time a little bit. Community solar is the idea that a group of people can fund a renewable energy system, usually a photovoltaic system, on a site that they don't all own. It might be on a business site, it may be on a municipal government building or in a park or wherever, but a group of people get together and decide that pool their money together, find a developer and build a system with the money that they've all invested, and then they get a return on their investment. Community solar. Why is that such a good idea? Is really that a lot of people are limited in their ability to gather solar energy because their site is no good. It's shaded, or buildings are facing the wrong way, or they're renters or condo owners, similar to people who invest in community gardens. You don't have a good spot to grow your vegetables. You put some money into a group effort to grow the vegetables, and each week or so, especially this time of year, you get a basket of vegetables. Same concept for community solar. Invest in a community solar, get the benefits delivered to your door, basically. Why community solar? First of all the good reasons you would do renewable energy. That's the environmental reasons and encouraging the growth of renewable energy. Homeowners and businesses don't always have a site where they can do the renewable energy themselves. This offers an ability to do that site and locate it in an ideal location. The initial investment can be high for a residential system, generally over $10,000 to put a system on your house. Maybe you'd rather just invest a few $1,000s or even a few hundred. A community solar system can allow you to do that. Takes the worry out. When we started out, we knew all these other reasons, but as we talked to people and learned, this was a process for us that started a little less than a year ago. We found out that one of the barriers to purchasing photovoltaic systems in Michigan is that people just don't really know much about it. They need to learn on what size system they might put on their house and where best to put it. They need to know what kind of collectors should I get and what about the inverters and the mounting systems and all those kind of things. Maybe I need a designer to design it for me and hire a contractor to build it for me. How do I find the right one? What about all the permitting? Who's going to handle that? What about the utility company's requirements? If I'm going to interconnect with the grid, I know there's rules. What are those rules? What kind of forms do I have to fill out? What about these tax rebates and incentives? We know they're out there. How do I get all of those? There are just a lot of questions that some people are happy to go through that process. With community solar, not only do you get all of this development taken care of for you, you're just purchasing a portion of something that's professionally built and professionally operated and maintained. Can't see the bottom of this slide, but operate and maintain the system is the final piece. Basically a worry-free investment, because the developer is getting their profits, their money out of successfully building and successfully operating this system. You're relying on a professional to do their job, and they're incentivized to do it so they can make their money out of it. Takes a lot of the worry away. These are all good reasons why you would consider community solar versus putting a system on your house. This document, A Guide to Community Solar, bottom's cut off, but it was produced in 2010. By the U.S. Department of Energy. That was when this idea started to take root in this country. This graph literally shows the development of community solar in this company. The numbers on the left are not multiplied by anything. So there was one system built in 2006, and it was the only one there was, and then there were 3 more in 2008. By the time we got to the year 2010, when the federal government said, well, this is an interesting concept that might really help solar energy grow in this country, there were 6 more built. So we're talking a total up to that time of just over 10 systems. It was small, but the concept was very attractive for all the reasons that I showed you. So they published that report. And in 2011, they had 10 more systems brought online, a few more in 2012, as the idea started catching on and as groups learned how they could implement it, given usually there's different state regulations, different, as Mark said, different local regulations. There's barriers, unfortunately, to community solar also. But the explosion has now begun in community solar. This is that same graph 8 months later. This was our high line. This is 30 times as many systems over the 8 months between that and May in 2013. The capacity of those systems has gone up hugely, and people are starting to understand this is a wonderful business model for people to invest in renewable energy for all the reasons I gave you. This is just a list of all of those systems. As of May, there was a little over 40-some systems, and the size of the systems. And I want to point out right here is Cherryland Electric Co-op. That is the Michigan's only renewable, only community system that's up and running as we speak. In our research, we discovered basically 2 kinds of community solar were happening around the United States. There were ones that were utility sponsored, meaning that the utility company was behind it and generally maybe even started it up themselves. They contacted their electric account owners and said, if you would like to buy into a solar energy project, you can buy a share in one that we're going to build on a building, in a field, didn't matter. Then the utility could either hire a third party to build and operate and maintain this system, or they could build it themselves, and then the credits for your collectors, if you bought 2 collectors from them, would go right on your utility bill. There would be a new line. These would be the kilowatt hours that you use. These would be the kilowatt hours that your solar collectors produce that are subtracted off of that. Excellent way to do it. The U.S. Department of Energy report that I showed you said, without a doubt, this is the easiest and best way to do it. Have your utility company be a good partner with you on this attempt. If, for whatever reason, utilities are not prepared or not interested or whatever in helping community solar happen, it can happen. Basically, it becomes a Security Exchange Commission issue with basically investing in something and getting a return on your investment. It's like buying stock or whatever. That's why the Security Exchange Commission gets involved in it. But you have a special purpose entity, which is all your members and whatever, that hire a developer. They pool their money together. The developer builds the system and sells either to the utility or perhaps to the host building where you built this system, and they get a return on their investment from the proceeds of selling the electricity. So the difference there is that it won't be on your utility bill. It's taxable as income. It's profit on your investment. It makes it a little more complex. Some of the ways that people are doing this more successfully are locating it on a host building, a grocery store, or a large government building, somewhere where you can do it basically behind the meter. The utility company isn't really involved at all in the process. They decide, we're looking in Ann Arbor at a parking structure, for instance, where we pay 11.3 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. So we would be happy to sign an agreement with a developer who came in and said, I'll put a solar energy system on top of your parking structure and we will pay you 11 cents a kilowatt hour for all the electricity that you pay us 11 cents for the next 20 years. And to us, that's a deal. And to the developer, that establishes an income stream. He knows that every kilowatt hour he produces, he can sell. He gets investors on the project, and ahead we go. If this building is large enough, it can use all the energy. If it's not large enough, you might have to do some form of net metering or other agreement with your utility company. These are the kind of projects that are being looked at in this state, both kinds. What's happening in Michigan? First of all, part of our report was to do a survey of just what's the cost. And no better organization than Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association to do that, because our association is the installers and manufacturers of solar energy, renewable energy equipment in the state. So we just did a survey of our members and found out that you can mount them 3 different ways. You can put them on the ground, you can put them on the roof, or you can put them on fancy trackers that actually follow the sun, and of course cost a little bit more. We found out that, as we suspected we would, that the bigger the system gets, the cheaper it gets to install. This is a dollars per watt of installed capacity for the systems. As you can see, there's a significant, 50% savings or more moving from a smaller system up to a larger system in all cases, and the price gets quite low sometimes, below $3 a watt. This is what Mark was talking about consolidating the church's purchases. This proves through our own installer supplier network that yes, you can get these savings in community solar, because you all are investing and buying a few collectors. We all save money because we can build a bigger system. There is a system up and running in Michigan. It's a partnership between Cherryland Electric Cooperative and Traverse City Light and Power up around Traverse City. What we discovered when looking at the various models for community solar around the United States was A, the utility model is the easier and best one and recommended by the federal government, all of that, and B, our utilities in Michigan, being Consumers Energy and DTE, our public utilities, can't really simply do this. They would need to get permissioning. There's no enabling legislation to allow them to do community solar. They could request a pilot program to study it, which they might do, but all of this takes time and lots of paperwork and whatever. Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, we're working on that to help them do that. But meanwhile, the cooperatives and the municipals can simply, the board of directors can decide this is something we think that our customers would be happy that we're doing and would participate in. That's what Cherryland and Traverse City decided. They announced that they were going to try one of these, and it would start in April 2013. They announced it around February or so. They said, look, we'll give you a 25-year lease. You can lease 1, 2, 3, we don't care, number of collectors you want. The cost is $470, but we've got a rebate available that'll drop it to $395 one-time payment for this panel. Next 25 years, you get the credit from it. That credit, it isn't huge. It adds up to about $25 a year. So that's a couple of dollars a month, a little bit more for each collector. But I'll show you the economics. It's not so bad. Traverse City Light and Power joined Cherryland once they announced, so between them they have about 45,000 electric customers. Cherryland started it up. They said, okay, we'll build, and they built the rack right next to the headquarters in Grand, Michigan to hold 48 collectors. And they said, okay, who wants to buy one? By the time they did the ribbon cutting in June, that rack had been increased in size to hold 80 collectors. And they had begun construction on 2 more racks of 72 more. People liked this idea. Cherryland and Traverse City became pretty happy that they had decided to offer this to their customers, and their customers were happy they did. This is just quickly one of their early flyers talking about you can sign up. They have the greatest acronym, Solar Up North, the Sun Project. And people could, as I said, do all that, put their $395 per collector, order 3 collectors. They'd put them on the rack, operate and maintain them for 25 years, credit your electric bill. Pretty good deal. Cherryland said, well, what we'd like to do as far as paying you is basically for your solar energy, we will pay you the average annual wholesale rate that we buy electricity from on the market. It's not a lot. It's the retail rate delivered to their house was more like 12 or 13 cents a kilowatt hour. They're paying them 7.8 cents a kilowatt hour. That's because, you know, it's basically the generation portion of the bill. You have three different costs in your bill: generation, transmission, and distribution. They will pay the cost of generating electricity because you're generating it with your solar collectors. They could have chosen to do a whole retail rate or whatever. They chose this conservative way so that nobody could say that people who aren't participating are somehow subsidizing those who are, that they're paying more for the power from the solar collectors than they ought to be, and it's not. They just avoided that whole thing, went as conservative as they could go. Right now they're paying 7.8 cents per kilowatt hour. Every January this will get changed on into the future. Next year in 2014 in January they'll look back at the year 2013 and they'll say, what was our average wholesale rate that year? And on and on and on. And anybody here thinks that 7.8 cents is ever going down? I mean, what'll happen is that this will inflate with the price of power, and the price of power is going to inflate for a number of reasons, some environmental, some because we have aging coal plants and they've got to be replaced, and the new generations, that's going to go up pretty darn fast. So the investment will be even better than what it looks like here. This is a spreadsheet that says it costs Cherryland $3. This is on a per collector basis. It costs Cherryland $3 a watt to install those collectors. So the total installed cost for one collector was about $690. They got a solar tax rebate for that, bringing the cost down to about $483. If you buy one collector, it generates 230 watts per panel. It costs you $395, one-time charge. That's 0.23 kilowatt hours. Over the course of a year, produces about 262 kilowatt hours of energy from that panel. Multiply that by their 7.8 cents, and you get $20 a year on that panel, a payback of about 19 years. Turns out that a 19-year payback is a 5.17% return on interest. On the money that you put in there, you're getting a 5% return on that interest. So it really isn't awesome, but it isn't bad at all. And as I said, this price, this 7.8 cents, is going to go up. And it's going to go up fairly significantly over the years and increase the payback, decrease the payback period on these collectors by quite a bit. This is a picture of that 80 kW system soon after it was produced, and I like to always show that right in the background over my right shoulder, that is the Cherryland headquarters. Must have been 78 degrees the day I was there. This is their web page that shows every day. It's renewed up, and this is from July, I guess. July 28th was the last day, but for the participants, they can get online, they can see how much energy those collectors are producing each day, and show off to their friends, I guess. We asked permission, and we're given it, to do a survey of the participants of this program. Both Cherryland and Traverse City allowed the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association to create an online survey document. Wonderful tool, these online surveys. They're pretty easy to do. They then distributed them to about 120, 130 people who had either signed on and were members of the Sun Project or had shown interest in joining. These surveys went out to all those people. And what we learned was a blank slide and another blank. Unfortunately, this happened in another place too. It didn't even warn me. All right, so there was a right here is a really nice bar chart. And what it is from that survey, way up at the top, it asked about economic and investment, how important, 0 to 10 down at the bottom, with 10 being really important. Then the questions along the top were things like, how important was your return on interest? How important was this as a money investment, whatever? Those questions all got the lowest response, 4s and 5s, for how important it was in their decision-making process. Down here at the bottom, all the ones that got the 8s and 9s and better had to do with investing in the community, with supporting solar energy, with doing the right thing environmentally. So it turned out that even though they were charging, I don't like this slide, even though they were charging 7.8, only paying 7.8 cents a kilowatt hour for purchasing the electricity back from these people, they didn't really care. It wasn't why they joined and why they went from selling not 42, not 80, but now up to 240 solar collectors into the community, because these people wanted to support renewable energy, they wanted to support their community, and the fact that they would, you really do get your money back. You know, there's been programs out there that you can all invest in through DTE or consumers, depending on where you're at, where you can donate $2, $3 a month, whatever it is, and they will put that towards renewable energy, but there's a real feeling that you get your money back on it, or you don't actually see it. One of the questions on our survey. Oh, all right. You can do that.
You also get a few new windmills built.
One of the fun questions we asked them was, have you seen your collectors? They're actually located in Grand, Michigan, which is 10 miles from anywhere out in the country, and 85% of the people responded, yes, we have. They had gotten in a car and driven the country roads and gone and seen their collectors. It just makes it feel a little more real to people. And you know, in future systems, they can be located in downtown parks, on city halls, you name it, you know, places where the community really feels like we are investing in community and we own a piece of that system. Oops, let's go back. So I said there were barriers, and I've got a few minutes to just go through them quickly. The public utility support, I told you that makes it all a lot easier to do. If we could get a pilot program and some legislation, that would be really helpful. The financial and institutional barriers have to do with the SEC rules, and I'll talk about these others as we get to them. As far as the utility support, this graph shows the colored states, Maine, Minnesota, Colorado, California, Washington, and a few others there, all have legislation in place that does allow community solar, or in a lot of cases, basically mandates it to the utility. You will do 500 megawatts worth of community solar, make that available for developers. Minnesota is the last, they just passed theirs, was maybe a month ago now that they did that. We are encouraging them in Michigan to do the same kind of thing, so that we can all do community solar. The SEC regulation thing, quite quickly, the only way you can do it right now financially that makes any sense, because of all these added costs for upfront costs and compliance costs, is as a private project, which means you can't have more than 25 investors. They all have to be from the state of Michigan, you know, a number of other minor things, but it really kind of limits us. And our report has some recommendations for the SEC rules that could perhaps make that work a little bit better for us. This graph shows the value of solar energy. There's reason to think that the value of solar is much more than energy and generation, just the red bar. This is 5 different studies across the United States, Michigan being the one on the far right. The cost of generating electricity. There's environmental benefits, obviously there are. How do you value those? Different ways in different studies. Some didn't have any at all. Capacity has to do with avoiding having to build new power plants. Expensive, costly new power plants. If you build enough of these, especially since they do a really good job of lowering the peak. Solar collectors work really well on hot summer days, when air conditioning is on and utilities are hitting their peaks, and various other savings for transmission and whatever. Bottom line on this is it varied according to study and according to state. The Department of Energy came up with a number for Michigan that was 13.8 cents a kilowatt hour. They thought was the true value of renewable energy. What the GLREA is recommending after our report is that the state try to create a value that everybody agrees on for this price, be it 7.8 cents because they really don't want to do anything more than this capacity number, or maybe how do we value all these other things that both the utility companies and the environmentalists and the developers, everybody agrees on. That will make it a lot easier for somebody like Cherryland to say, well, we're giving you 10.5 cents a kilowatt hour because solar does have more value. The state has decided, and we agree, that there are some environmental benefits and some capacity benefits, whatever. That's one of our recommendations. I'm going to skip this one because we're running out of time. Mark already covered the fact that local zoning and permitting is going to be key in helping bring the cost down on this stuff. This is a resolution from the city of Ann Arbor, basically, that after a whole lot of whereases, like all resolutions should have, telling how wonderful community solar is, says that the Ann Arbor City staff should work with DTE to explore the possibility of creating a community solar pilot program by March 2014 for the community, and encourages the Michigan legislature to pass legislation enabling community solar. Just trying to travel around the state, Great Lakes Renewable Energy, and educate people that there is such a thing as community solar, that it's becoming very big in a lot of other states, that Michigan should probably jump on that bandwagon because it produces lots of jobs, and we have a lot of solar manufacturers in Michigan, and we believe it would be good for Michigan. These are our recommendations. I pretty much already covered them, so we're just going to jump to the end of this presentation. My contact information is on this slide. You can get to GLREA just by going to glrea.org. That's my organization. That's my email at toast.net. There was some mention of a renewable energy fair that we put on every year. It'll be in Ingham County in June. And now it says questions, and I think we can do that.
We have about 10 minutes now to take some questions, at least 5 questions. If you have more questions afterwards, you feel free, please, to talk to the speakers individually. Yeah. So
What happens after the 25 years?
It's all contractual, so I can tell you specifically in the Cherryland case, after 25 years, those collectors and all 100% of their output reverts to Cherryland. The collectors themselves are expected to be, after 25 years, are expected to still be producing at least 80% of what they were on day one. And they think they will get another 10 or 15 years worth of production off those collectors that will be just pure profit for Cherryland and others, you know. But
So when you put your money down, then that's only good for 25 years.
That's right.
And it reverts back.
that's right. In this case, it can be a lot of different ways. You know, different projects will be set up different ways. You know, and some maybe they'd let you come and take your collector after 20. It's all in the contract you sign.
Maybe so inefficient.
yeah, we have another question in the back there.
Yes.
The problem of being that 90% of Michigan isn't actually eligible for this wonderful idea. But this
So far.
yeah, my street would be great, I think.
Well, and you know, you're not eligible if you're in DTE or whatever territory for a utility-based one. We are working with 4 or 5 different groups in Ann Arbor alone that are neighborhood groups and whatever that are looking at the smaller solution. I mean, they're going to be smaller systems because you can only have 25 investors, but you can set it up in another way, and there's a number of groups looking for those smaller ones. We are pushing for the ideal, however.
Okay.
So, for example, a church, you could take congregants make a tax-deductible charitable contribution. The church uses that to put a solar array on their building, and they use all the power, which means that their buying power, 13 cents a kilowatt hour, would get reimbursed for 7 cents an hour. But if they use all that power, they're basically getting it at the equivalent of a 13 cent. So you get a tax-deductible charitable contribution. If you have a third party that does it it gets between you and the church as a private business, they get a 30% tax credit. So all of a sudden it gets real interesting. That's a community. Myers Corporation uses a 0.5 megawatt on an average Myers store. Meyer could put an array on their roof. Their credit card holders could have some relationship with them. And all of that happens, and you don't need the permission of any utility or anybody in state government to do that, or at the federal government level.
And what about the Sierra Club program? Is that would that be a place that gets around the rules in the same way, or is that not?
Yeah, we're looking at a number of things with Sierra Club. The first one was basically setting up a targeted fund inside the Sierra Club that you'd contribute to that would create solar projects. but none of them so far that we've looked at is Sierra Club or any other nonprofits looking at giving you any money back because they don't want the SEC jumping in. It is more of allowing more solar development by pooling funds through the nonprofits and targeting that to renewable energy. And then the proceeds from that energy now usually go to help wherever you put it on a shelter or whatever nonprofit building, and the excess money goes to developing solar education programs and more solar projects in the community. So there's a lot of benefits from it. It's just not strictly what I would call community solar, where you would get a check in the mail every month.
And where does leasing fit in this then?
Leasing is simply, a whole lot of this is just contract language. Sometimes they lease the collectors to you, sometimes they sell you the collectors, sometimes they sell you a certain number of watts of production capacity. So you get your share, and then that changes every month based on the season and the sun. But it's all essentially the same thing. The report, which will be out in shortly, really goes into that in detail on all the various business ways you can set these up.
And you'll be able to get that report on their website or Michael's website both.
Okay, we have one question here and then another one in the back.
What is the current baseline in Michigan? How many solar units are we currently doing in the state of Michigan? And what is the tipping point for this? I don't know if there is a tipping point, but where do we need to be to have this be successful, or is it just so local that it doesn't really matter that there's a tipping point?
The tipping point is every single community's got its own tipping point.
So it's not a collective. It's not like we need to be at 4,000 units a year.
It's collected for DTE if they have a program. They do it, but they're not doing it. So that means you have to break up the market.
And
so
for them to do would be way.
So the best we've been able to look at is multiple counties, and so we're working with communities and counties to come together. Like we did worked with 11 counties up north. 5 of those counties signed on.
But every community is its own entity, so therefore there's no universal to make this successful. You can have a successful community program with 50 people or 100 people or whatever, or 500, and you don't need a statewide number that you have to have 2,000 people doing.
No. If you look at the economy scale, the chart that they did, I mean, half a megawatt's a big system for anybody. So that's the best pricing you're going to get. But you could put together a half a megawatt, in fairly easy in a handful of contiguous or non-contiguous communities. What we did find in that study was that the installers, it's not where the jobs are done. That gets lost in the rounding. That's just gas. So they'll pick you aggregate the pool. They cluster the aggregation installation days based on over here we'll over here. This tomorrow will be over here. Da da da. But it gets lost in the rounding. It's the nuts, bolts, screws, and the simplified system. Everybody gets a Model T.
Trying to interpret Larry's question, there are projects out there where as few as 10 people have put together a small project at a local church or a local social club or whatever. There are projects out there run by a national company called Mosaic that have thousands of investors and offer investment as low as $50 per share. So it's brand new. That's why we're here, to just tell you it exists and it's brand new, and we're going to try to help it succeed in Michigan to help our members, the installers and manufacturers, bring more jobs to Michigan, and help. What we say from our organization is that if you're interested, if you bring a group together and you want to learn more about community solar, contact us at the Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and we will assist you in that. Certainly get you our guidebook, and if you need a speaker to come or whatever, we'll work on that with you too.
So the question in the back is already covered?
I don't know that.
Is that why?
Yeah.
You kind of answered it, because I wanted to ask, what do I as an individual do if I'm interested but cannot put solar on my own house? I need to check your websites and keep track of...
Yeah, and look around your community groups and whatever, and what we're so far in Ann Arbor, there have been a number of neighborhood groups that have come together. We never heard of them until they were already pretty far along going, we want to do community solar, and then they discovered that somebody like me has been working on that now, seems like constantly for 9 months, to learn how the heck to do it and how to advise groups like that in their decision-making processes on forming a business organization and moving forward with it.
I saw one more question here, I think.
Yeah, so the Cherryland investors, are they all unsophisticated or?
It doesn't matter for Cherryland because it's done under the utility auspices with their customers. They have set it up, and so far I guess our attorney agrees that the money they get credited back for on their utility bills is not taxed as income. So there's a significant difference there, you know, based on your taxes, but 20-30% or more of your profits, you know, you got to give back if it's profit. One more, and then we really will quit.
Did I understand correctly that for behind the meter or low displacement, that you don't need the permission of the utility company?
Yes, absolutely. This is under the state's net metering program.
If you're doing purely low displacements, you don't need to ask for any permission.
Right. You will have to do an interconnect agreement with the utility to protect the safety of the utility workers and make sure that you're not putting electricity in their lines when they don't want it. But beyond that, yeah, you're free
You
to
go
do
past
it.
a half a megawatt, you got to pay a standby charge.
Okay,
That's it.
Yeah, I'm not talking that level.
But it's interesting, there's a guy in Milford building a net zero home, who's a solar guy, and he's not going through DTE's program because he thinks he can do better with MyRex and sell the RECs directly.
Yeah.
Because DTE is only paying 3 cents a kilowatt hour, they used to pay 11.
Right.
When I put my solar in, they're paying me 11 cents a kilowatt hour, today it's only 3. He feels he can sell the RECs through MyRex at a better price. So he's not going through DT, he's using the net metering and selling the RECs himself. So just a thought, but that, you know, those are decisions you all, if you're looking at solar, you should be looking at what the utility program is versus what the market is and pick what's ever better for you.
Here.
All right.
If you have any more questions, please feel free again to ask them on an individual basis. I would like to thank the speakers and presenters.
I got $2.40 a
Thank
watt
you.
now to pay.